Okay, good afternoon or good morning once again. We are continuing with our lesson on law of contract. The last time we met, we talked about what a contract is. We also looked at, when we were discussing it, we talked about domestic agreement and social agreements and what they are. Then we finally talked about the types of contract that we have. Remember, in our discussion in respect of the types of contract, we learned about valid contract. Then we said that when we say a contract is valid, then it means it satisfies all the conditions that have been laid down by law, and that it can be enforced because it satisfies all conditions that have been laid down by law. Now today, what we are going to do today is very simple. We are going to look at those conditions that must be satisfied by the parties involved in contract. Now you remember, when we say parties, you understand who the parties to a contract are. So what are the conditions that must be satisfied before a contract can be valid? And so we'll be looking at the essential elements of a valid contract. That is the topic for today. The essential elements of a valid contract. And when you say the essential elements of a valid contract, then it means we are looking at the principal conditions that must be satisfied before a contract can be valid. In other words, absence of any of those conditions will make a contract invalid or unenforceable. And you know what is meant by unenforceable contract, and you know what is meant by invalid contract, which is the same as void contract. So today, by the time we are through with this lesson, our lesson objectives are: number one, you should be able to state and explain at least 4 essential elements of a valid contract. Then 2, you should also be able to explain what necessaries are. When you say necessaries, you see, in one of the essential elements, we'll be talking about a concept in law we call necessaries. What are they? And what are the examples of necessaries? You should be able to explain and give at least 3 examples of what necessaries are. Then the last thing here is that you should be able to give at least 4 categories of people who do not have contractual capacity. One of the elements we'll be looking at contractual capacity or capacity. And then we will know what capacity is, or when you say you must have contractual capacity, what it means. And then people who do not have contractual capacity. So that is that. So what are those principal conditions? What are the elements? What are the principal conditions that make a contract valid? Now I have listed them here. Now note, what is here? I'm going to give just one word to represent each of the elements. And it is very important you know them like that, because especially in the objectives, when they ask questions, they don't write sentences. They usually write the one word form. So you must know the one word form. Then we now have the sentences. So the first condition is that, remember I said the first, it is the first. And we learned that one in our previous lesson. Remember when we were talking about contract? We said that a contract is an agreement. Then we said, but it's not every agreement that is a contract. So the first condition that must be present for a contract to be valid is that there must be agreement. So number one is agreement, and that is what is here, agreement. Number two, there is what we call, there should be intention to create legal relation. Intention to create legal relation. And I remember in our last lesson, I talked about that one. Remember we said that domestic agreements are not enforceable. And the reason why they are not enforceable is that the intention to create legal relation is absent. In other words, there is no intention to create legal relation in domestic agreement. And I told you, who would be thinking that if a husband was promising a wife to be remitting her, to be giving her money, and the husband failed to give the money or fulfill that promise, who would be thinking that as at the time the husband was making that promise, the wife was thinking that, or the wife had the intention that should the husband fail to fulfill that promise, then she was going to sue the husband or take legal action against the husband. Nobody will be thinking like that. But you see, you may be asking, but who know the intention? But the wife can say that that intention was there. So who know? Who can open the head and know that that intention was there or not? That is not how law is. In law, it is not about what you are thinking. In law, it is said that no one knows the intentions of men, not even the devil. So they don't look at your intention. They look at the interpretations of a reasonable person. I'm going to repeat that statement. In law, they have what we call subjective test, and they have what we call objective test. When a judge sits down, he is not looking at your intention, which is called subjective test, what you may be thinking, no. But they will look at what we call, they use the objective test. The objective test means they will be looking at how a reasonable person will interpret it. So they will look at the interpretations of a reasonable person. Okay, husband and a wife, they were there. A husband had promised the wife that I will give you this thing. Every reasonable person will know that as at the time the husband was making that promise, the wife was not thinking that if the husband failed to fulfill that promise, then she would sue the husband. No, that intention will not be there. So they will not be saying, oh, you will be saying that that intention was there. That is not what they are going to use. So we learn that there must be intention to create legal relation. And that in one way, if you see intention, that is the one they are talking about. The next one, very simple, is that there must be consideration. So in one way, consideration, and we learn about what consideration is. The next one is that if the law says that the contract must be entered into in a certain form. Now, remember, get closer to it. Remember, yesterday when we were talking about the types of contract and a simple contract, I said that a simple contract can take the form of one. Either written, it can be written, or two, oral. So you can make oral contract and you can make contract that are written. Then we also said that it can also be implied. Implied means it is neither written nor but made by word of mouth. That is oral. Implied means that the court will look at your action, your conduct. Your conduct. And they will refer or they will make inference to your conduct, your action. And now interpret whether you entered into a contract with a person or not, whether you made an offer or not, whether you accepted it or not. For example, if you went to a restaurant and then you sat down, you never called for the menu, you ask the one who is serving, give me a plate of rice and a bottle of malt. Then the person brought that. You thought probably a bottle of malt is 7 cedis, 50 pesos, as probably you have been buying elsewhere. And that a plate of rice is, let's say, 25 Ghana cedis. So you ordered and then you ate. Then the person came, said, how much? The person said, the malt is 25 Ghana cedis. The plate of rice is 90 Ghana cedis. You say, no, is this here, is that here? Now the question is, have you entered into a contract to pay that price? Yes. Why? Because you have made an offer, and we shall learn about what an offer is. Without even asking, by your action, it means you had agreed to pay the price, even though you did not ask them. So by your action, that is what is meant by implied. I will give another example to explain what is meant by implied again. You put your shoes on your wall in front of your house. Then the shoe shine boy was passing. Then the shoes were dirty. The boy picked the shoes, cleaned the shoes, and then the boy polished the shoes. Then afterwards, the boy came to you and said he had worked on your shoes and that it was 10 Ghana cedis. You paid. Okay. Another time, the boy did the same thing, you paid. Then, another time, the boy comes and he picked the shoe, he shines, and he said, no, me, I did not ask you to. No. That one by your conduct. What is the conduct? Previously, you had paid this boy when you did not request for that service. So by that conduct, it means you have accepted that anytime this boy polishes your shoes, you will pay. So that one, it is not by word of mouth, it was not by any written means, but it was by your conduct. So that is what is meant by implied. So the form that a contract can take can be number 1 by written, number 2 by oral, and then number 3 by implied. And I said when you say by implied, it means that inferences will be made in respect of your actions or your conduct. So that is that. So in law, it is not about whether I said it or I did not say it. No, that is not it. They can refer or they can make inference to your conduct and then indicate that you have entered into a contract with the person. So that is for the formality, the form. And you see, form. If the law says that the contract should take a certain form, then that form must be complied with. You remember when we were talking about specialty contract, we learned that if you are buying a piece of land, it must be entered by deed. So if you just make that contract by oral means, there is no, it cannot be enforced. It cannot be enforced because it will lack this element, which is the formality. So that is for that one. Then we look at capacity. Both parties must have contractual capacity. So we shall learn about what it is. And that is what contractual capacity is, what one way we say capacity. Then legality. The contract must be for legal purpose. It must not be for illegal purpose. So that is the legality. The next one is possibility. It should be possible to perform the contract. It should be possible to perform the contract. We shall learn about that. That's the possibility. And the last one is genuineness. There must be genuineness of consent. We shall learn about that one. So what I'm saying is that for a contract to be valid, then all these elements must be present. In other words, if there is agreement and there is no intention to create legal relation, there cannot be a contract. If there is agreement, there is intention to create legal relation, but there is no consideration, there cannot be, the contract will not be valid. If there is agreement, intention to create legal relation, consideration, but the contract did not take the form it's supposed to take, there must not be a valid contract. There is agreement, intention to create legal relation, consideration has been provided, there is formality, but the parties do not have contractual capacity, the contract will not be valid. Agreement, intention to create legal relation, consideration has been provided, there is formality or it took the form that it's supposed to take, there is capacity, both parties have contractual capacity, but the contract, the terms of contract was not legal, then it will not be valid. Agreement, intention, consideration, formality, capacity, legality, but it is not possible to perform. Let me give you an example. If somebody tells you that he will give you 100,000 Ghana cedis if you are able to carry your school's building, the administration block, you are able to carry. Is it possible to do that? The answer is no. Now another example, somebody tells you that if you're able to swim across the Atlantic Ocean, the person will give you 100,000 cedis. Is it possible? No. So because it is not possible to perform, then there is no contract. Then all these things are there, but there is no genuineness of consent. We shall learn about that one. Then there is no contract. So that is for that one. Now let's explain. You see, I've even done most of the work here, so the rest very simple. The first one, I said there must be agreement. In law, when you say there must be agreement, what does that mean? There must be agreement. What is agreement? In law of contract, agreement is said to have taken place when one party makes an offer and the other party accepts the offer, then it means there is agreement. So I have done this, I said agreement is equal to, are you getting closer? Agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance. Agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance. That means when you say there is agreement, it means somebody has made an offer. Somebody has made a proposal to buy something. Or somebody has made a proposal to sell something. And another person has also consented, accepted to buy it, accepted to sell it. Once there is an offer and there is acceptance, then there is agreement. Please note, you will be reading some books and they are talking about the essential elements of a valid contract. Then the person says, number one, there must be agreement. Then the person will come to number two and tell that there must be offer and acceptance. Please, it is wrong. When you say there is agreement, it means there is offer and acceptance. So if somebody says number one is agreement, number two is offer and acceptance, the person is saying the same thing. So there must be offer and then there must be acceptance. When the two come together, then there is agreement. But you see, it is not just a matter of there is an offer and there is acceptance. There should be what we call in Latin consensus ad idem. Have you captured it? Consensus ad idem in Latin, and if you translate this one into English language, it means meeting of minds. Meeting of minds. Mind. And we say the two minds have met. What does that mean? Okay. I made an offer to buy football from you. you also accepted and gave me football. It means our minds have met. We have had the same understanding concerning the subject matter, which was football. So it means there is consensus ad idem. Our minds have met. But if you have given me football boot, when I said football, you thought I was talking about football boot. It means there was no consensus ad idem. And when there was no consensus ad idem, our minds we did not have the same understanding or comprehension, then it means that there is no contract. The contract is void. There is no contract. So for there to be an agreement, then there should be, the two minds should meet, and that means there should be consensus ad idem. So take note of that. So that's why I said the offer must be equal to the acceptance. The offer being equal to acceptance here means that I made an offer to buy football and you gave me football. So football is equal to football. But if I said football and you had given me football boot, and this one is representing boot, football boot, then there was no consensus added. And that means there is no agreement, and that means there is no contract. So that is what we should know. That's number one. Number two, there must be intention to create legal relations. I don't think I have to continue to explain this thing to you again. That means that the parties involved should be ready to take legal action against each other. There should be intention to create legal relations. So there should be that awareness that if one party fails to fulfill his obligation, the other one will seek redress in court. The other one will seek redress in court is that, now remember, we have learned that the courts are there to enforce a contract. They will not make the contract for you. But if one party fails to fulfill his part of their contract, then the court will compel the person to do that. So when there is that intention to create legal relation, that if one fails to fulfill his part of the contract, the other one can sue him, then it means there is intention to create legal relation. So that is that one. So it should be subject to an action in court of law. The agreement should be subject to action in court of law. Meaning, if one fails to fulfill his part, the other one can sue him. As opposed to domestic and social agreement. That means, if it is social agreement, if it is domestic agreement in general, then there is no contract. So that is that. And now we are going to use a certain case, Balfour versus Balfour in 1919. Balfour versus Balfour in 1919. What happened? Now, there was this man who was a civil engineer, and his name was Mr. Balfour. He lived in Ceylon. That's where he came from. That's where he came from. Ceylon. Now, this has changed to Sri Lanka. So that is the modern name. Now, he and his wife, they traveled to England for holidays. When they were through and they were to come, the wife fell sick. And she was on medication, so she was advised not to travel. She should stay because she was on medication. So after her husband was leaving, was going back to Ceylon, he promised that every month he would be giving £30 allowance to the wife. Unfortunately, when he went, he did not fulfill that promise. So the wife took legal action against him, that the court should compel him to pay the money promised. And what happened? So held. Remember, I have told you that when you say held, it means what did the court say? What was the result? Now remember, Balfour versus Balfour, that means Mr. Balfour, Mrs. Balfour versus Mr. Balfour. The first Balfour is the Mrs. Remember, she is the plaintiff. The second Balfour is the minister. He is the defendant. And it was held that, or the woman's action failed. She went to court, but she didn't succeed. The court said it was not, if the husband did not give the money to her, she didn't have any right to sue the husband. Why? Because it was a domestic agreement that did not have the intention to create legal relation. And therefore, if your husband had made promise to you and that he did not fulfill, it was not a contract. It was a mere domestic agreement. So that is number one. Number two, they also said that, okay, why? What consideration did you provide to merit the promise to remit you £30 every month? So the wife's action failed. And it failed because there was no intention to create legal relation, because it was a domestic agreement. So that is Balfour versus Balfour. The third element is that there must be valuable consideration. And I'm giving you brief or simple explanation of what consideration is. If you enter into a contract with somebody, you must provide consideration. Are you buying a book from somebody? Have you paid anything? You are supposed to pay money. Has the person given you the book? The person is supposed to give you the book. So the book that the person is giving you is the person's consideration. The money that you are paying is the consideration from you. So if you have not provided any consideration, you cannot take any legal action against the person. Remember, simple contracts must be supported by consideration. And I've told you, take note of these elements. After we have discussed them, we shall pick them one after the other and talk about them in details. So let's take note of that. That is where I will explain to you what is consideration. I will look at the technical definition of consideration. But here, note that we are looking at the price you pay for either enjoying something or having benefit of something. So you lose something for gaining something. You lost your money to the person, is that not it? And you gain by having the book. The person also lost the book to you, is that not it? And then the person gained by having your money. So it becomes a benefit to one and then a detriment to another. So while somebody is benefiting, haven't you benefited from using the book? Yeah, that's a benefit. Is the person not benefiting for taking your money? That is a benefit. Now it becomes a detriment. You have lost your money to the person has also lost the book to you. So that is all that consideration is about. And without it, a contract cannot be enforced. So it's always see to it that if you enter into a contract with a person, before you can enforce it, you must provide consideration. That is why somebody will tell you, you take this money and keep it there. Because the person knows if I don't give the money to the person, but the person can sell it and I cannot do anything to this person. So if somebody says, oh, you keep the money, that means the person wants you to provide consideration so that if you sell it, then the person can take legal action against you. So there must be consideration. Number 4, if the law requires that the contract should take a certain form, that form must be complied with. In other words, if it is supposed to be written, it must be written, it should not be oral. If it is supposed to be made by deed, it must be made by deed. That's a specialty contract, but not just writing and the 2 people signing. There must be a third party to witness. So that is all that one. The next one, both parties must have contractual capacity. Both parties must have contractual capacity. Now before I continue, we want to pause for something and then I'll continue. So pause.